them as depending purely on science, but which only translate the compromises with their personal philosophy. In this field in France, we are well placed to note to what extent famous specialists in molecular biology, like Jacques Monod or François Jacob, worthy, however, to have received a Nobel Prize in medicine, could have taken liberties with the facts in order to satisfy their materialistic desires. One knows the fantastic organization which rules the functioning of the cell and commands the evolution in the animal kingdom. How can we agree with François Jacob when he considers evolution as a result of makeshift arrangements in his book, The Game of Possibilities? Or can we agree with Jacques Monod since he upheld the theory of chance and necessity as explaining everything? It is not possible to admit the determinative role of chance when we know that the organization of a living being is much more highly complex than any producer or any programmer of computers might imagine. I cannot here give the numerous details which I have dealt with in several chapters of my book. Nevertheless, one must insist upon several data concerning life from a general point of view and the functions of the cell. Here, I should like to remind you of several notions which you are not aware of, since to draw a parallel between them is highly instructive. To assert that life might have occurred spontaneously on Earth is an absurdity. To say that it came from space is without any scientific basis. Most certainly, experiments like those of Miller in 1955 were able to demonstrate that very small amounts of chemical components having high complexity, like amino acids of cellular proteins, might be produced artificially. In a gaseous atmosphere made of hydrogen, ammonia, methane, and water vapor, electrical discharges of high intensity might have produced samples of those components, but it is not the life which is obtained for all that. The reasoning of Miller is erroneous, for there is a right gap between bringing the compounds to combine together in a chemically ordered fashion and producing the fantastic complex we call the cell, or even more rudimentary living organisms. A statement such as this is tantamount to saying that the possibility of spontaneously forming steel particles from iron ore and coal at high temperature could have automatically led to the construction of the well-known Eiffel Tower in Paris, or other towers that you know well in Chicago, through a series of happy coincidences. This series of happy coincidences would have assembled the materials in proper order, and the result would have been to obtain what was, for the Eiffel Tower, a triumph of metal construction almost a century ago. And we must note that the structure of such a tower is much less complex than the most simple cell. Each cell possesses, if I dare say, its computer. The orders for innumerable functions are given by molecules through which a program is elaborated, including reproduction. In the nuclei of the cells, a proteinic macromolecule, the desoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, is the basic element of a system having a tremendous complexity and producing the catalysts triggering specific chemical reactions. The specificity of the latter depends on chemical components which hook onto this basic substance. By this way, coded orders are sent by chemical messengers, and after decoding, specific enzymes are produced, leading to the synthesis of proteins which are necessary to life. The genes are segments of DNA to which chemical compounds are appended. Each cell possesses a considerable number of them, ordering innumerable activities, so the genome is constituted. Even the living organisms, which have not a nucleus like the bacteria, have such a system of command. In the cells there is a tape of DNA folded over on itself a great deal of times. By this way, thousands of different kinds of proteins may be produced, about 3,000 for bacteria like Escherichia coli. In the case of Escherichia coli, the length of the tape of DNA is 1 millimeter. 1 millimeter, that is to say, 5,000 times the maximum size of the bacteria. In human beings, where the size of each cell is drawn to a scale of thousands of a millimeter, the cumulated length of the tapes of DNA of all the cells of the body is exceeding several times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. More exactly, today one estimates that this accumulated length might be equivalent to more than 15 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. In other words, an evaluation made in astronomical terms. It is not inconceivable that in the future a precise inventory of the genes in man would be drawn up. One estimated today that in order to carry out such a plan, 1,000 researchers, engineers and technicians would have to work on it during 30,000 years. If we suppose that every chemical basic compound, that is to say in the present case every nucleotide, will be represented by a letter in books having collected the information only concerning a human being, one will need 2,000 medium-sized books, each one of 500 pages. You easily imagine the length of shelves of the bookcase. And behold, such a fantastic number of data are contained in every nucleus of our cells, whose size is evaluated on a scale of thousands of a millimeter. Its volume is so tiny that if the whole genetic inheritance of the approximate number of 5 billion human beings living on Earth were gathered in order to form a whole, the total mass would not exceed a volume of 1 cubic centimeter. Is a human brain in a position to conceive such a miniaturization in computer programming? The basic characteristic of the living organisms is the fantastic organization. The genes order the functions of every cell. While man is able voluntarily to influence certain aspects of the function of the organs, in the animals, most of the functions are totally automatic due to an extremely sophisticated programming in certain cells in the nervous cells of the birds, for example. Their very complex migrations are under the dependence of a prodigious stocking of information, inducing automatic behavior.